that we were discussing about uh, lift which is produced when we get a net force on an object perpendicular to the flow direction. And to have positive lift, we need to have higher pressure on the lower side and uh, and lower pressure on the upper side of the object. So we need lift for uh, airborne aircraft, missile rockets, and we don't. And lift is not desirable for objects which are to be traveling on the ground, like buses, cars, to have more control of the vehicle. So in the last class, we discussed in detail about different aspects. So we discussed that what is angle of attack. So angle of attack is the angle between flow and the chord length. Chord length is basically the line which joins the leading edge and trailing edge. And then we discussed about the concept of stall, where we have got quite higher angle of attack, due to which the boundary layer separates very drastically on the upper side, and due to that we have got very high drag. And when there is more drag on the on the body, so consequently the velocity decreases, and due to that lift also decreases. And then in the last we discussed about the use of wing flaps. So we use wing flaps on the trailing edge just to increase the lift if the aeroplane is going to take off. And you can see this small kind of triangular element at the trailing edge, so it is angled downward. So that's why it would have increased the lift. And the second consequence would be the increase in drag as well, but the increase in drag is a little bit more. But on the other hand, lift would be increased quite significantly. And if we want to decrease lift by use of this flap, so we need to make it on the other side, which is upward direction. So then we can have, so we can use this wing flap in the upward position when we are landing. So that is it. So up till now, we have discussed the concept of lift and drag. Lift and drag. So these two forces, they act when we have got solid fluid interaction. So solid fluid. So if we talk about solid fluid interaction, like flow over this flat plate, for instance, we can divide the flow into two portions. One is the viscous region, and one is inviscid region. So viscous region is the region where we have got the viscous forces greater than inertial forces. And then inviscid region, or we also call it irrotational flow region. So this is the region where inertial forces are bigger than viscous forces. So it means that viscosity of the fluid is not felt at that, and the presence of fluid is only limited to near wall region, which is called, we call it boundary layer. Boundary layer region. So the lift and drag forces, they are a strong function of boundary layer development region. So as we discussed for the drag in blunt bodies like circular cylinder, that if I can show you the figure, this figure, that if the boundary layer is laminar in this flow over cylinder, then the flow would separate at theta is equal to 80 degree and the wake region would be quite big. But if the boundary layer is turbulent, in that case the flow separation would happen at the back end, which is theta is equal to 180 degree when we are measuring theta from this axis. So in that case the wake region would be less and drag forces would be more. Yes, any question? Okay, so it means that we need to discuss the boundary layer characteristics in a little bit more detail. Because up till now we have just discussed that if the boundary layer is laminar, the wall friction drag would increase and the pressure drag would reduce for the flow over cylinder. But what are the characteristics of boundary layer, or what are the parameters which define a boundary layer, and for flow over boundary layer, what kind of equations we need to solve? Because for the total flow field, we know that we need to solve Navier-Stokes equations. If you remember, in chapter number 6, which was the first chapter, we derived Navier-Stokes equations. So they are applicable everywhere, but in the boundary layer region, these equations are kind of simplified so that we can get the solution easily. So we will discuss that in this class, that how can we derive the boundary layer equation from the Navier-Stokes equations, and what are the parameters which characterize the boundary layer region. So if you remember that, I think in chapter number 8, we discussed that one parameter for that is boundary layer thickness. So boundary layer thickness is the distance away from the solid surface up till where the velocity is different from the free stream velocity. So it means that delta is a region where the velocity is u upon u is capital U is free stream velocity, it is less than 0.99 or equal. So it means that if the velocity is different from the free stream velocity, so it means that in that region the presence of that body is felt. So that is the region where viscosity is dominant. So this boundary layer grows as we move along the plate. So now we kind of see all the things which I have discussed on the lecture slides, just to make things a little bit more clear and to show you a couple of figures regarding this. So let me take you to that. So as I mentioned in the beginning, that it is often possible to treat flow as an object. So we are talking about external flow as a combination of two regions. One is viscous region, where viscous flow is happening in the boundary layer, and inviscid flow, or we also call it irrotational flow, which is away from that body. So if I can show you that, here you can see a shaded region near the wall, near this surface or flat plate. We call it boundary layer. So it means that in this gray shaded region, the velocity gradients are there, first of all, and the velocity is different from the free stream velocity. For instance, if the velocity which is coming on this plate has a value of 10 meter per second, so it means that in this shaded region, it is always less than that, because the there are viscous effects. And then there is a second thing which maybe let me kind of make it a little bit more uh, visible to you. So now you can see a fluid element which is shown by this square, a blue element. So if you see that fluid element, if it is inside the inviscid flow, which is away from the wall, it retains its shape. There is no deformation of the element. While that, because the velocity which is on the upper side of the fluid, that would be the same velocity which is on the lower side of the fluid. Now let's talk about that a fluid element which is going inside the boundary layer. So inside the boundary layer, we always know that the velocity near, if we move away from the wall, the velocity would increase. So it means if I draw that element on the whiteboard, so if this was okay, so if this was the surface, and here that was the element which was before coming onto the inside the boundary layer. So this is boundary layer region. So now if I kind of draw this again by dotted line. So dotted line was, it means that it was the original state. Okay, can anyone tell me that if this is the location A and this is location B? Location B is on the upper face of the element, location A is on the lower face of the element. So if I write here, u streamline velocity at A and streamline velocity at location B. Can anyone tell me that whether the velocity at point A would be greater or the velocity at point B would be greater? Anyone in the class?
Yes, sir. Velocity at B would be greater.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you very much for your contribution. So here I can say that if the velocity is greater here and it is less here, so it would be tilted like this. Right? It would be something like this because it has got low velocity, so it has got upper more velocity, so it would be tilted in the clockwise direction if we take this. So it means that it has got some kind of deformation as well. So these deformation we also discussed in the beginning of chapter number 6. So that is kind of rotation here. So the fluid element is rotating. So we call it that boundary layer flow is rotational flow. Rotational flow, it means that the fluid element has been kind of deformed, right? So that is the something which is shown here. You can see the elements which are inside this boundary layer. They are kind of tilted in the in the forward way. So and okay, so here we have got laminar boundary layer. So what was the condition for laminar boundary layer? If you remember that in the beginning of the chapter, we also discussed that laminar boundary layer, laminar boundary layer would have Reynolds number less than critical Reynolds number. So critical Reynolds number we define it is equal to 5 into 10 to the power 5 for external flow, right? Or we can also say it around 2 lakh or 3 lakh depending upon the surface roughness. But usually we take it 5 lakh for flat plate. And what is REX? REX is the Reynolds number depending upon the distance from the leading edge. So x is equal to 0 at the leading edge, and then it increases as we increase the length of the plate. So we define it rho into u infinity. U infinity is the free stream value of velocity which is coming on to this plate, into x divided by mu. So if I kind of, so if we move, if the flow is moving along the flat plate, Reynolds number which is depending upon the x location, that would increase. So there would be a point where let's see that here Reynolds number of x is equal to Reynolds number of critical. So then in that case, this portion would be laminar boundary layer, and after that we would have turbulent boundary layer, because then the flow transition would occur, which would occur after 5 lakh or 3 lakh for that instance, and that depends on the surface toughness of the flat plate. So uh, that is the concept of turbulent boundary layer transition on a flat plate, when the when the flow Reynolds number becomes equal to or greater than the critical Reynolds number. So that is which is shown here. So it means that this is the point where Rex becomes equal to critical Reynolds number. So a small rectangular particle retains its shape as it flows in the uniform flow outside. So as I mentioned that because there is no velocity gradient outside the boundary layer. So if it is 10 meter per second here, so on the upper surface it would be 10 meter per second, on the lower surface as well it would be 10 meter per second. But this is different when there is a flow within the boundary layer, because as somebody told us that flat plate in at the upper side would be more, the velocity at the upper side would be more, and the velocity at the lower side within the boundary layer on that element would be less. So that's why there would be a kind of a rotation of that element, right? And there would be a deformation. So particles begin to deform or distort in the boundary layer because of the velocity gradient within the boundary layer, and that velocity gradient it is shown on this. You can say that if this is the point where we are measuring the velocity, so at the wall the velocity would be 0 and it would increase rapidly. So up to that point the velocity would be less than 99% of the free stream velocity, but after that you can see a uniform value of velocity everywhere in this region. So that's why there is no velocity gradient on the fluid element which is outside the boundary layer, right? So boundary layer flow becomes turbulent after when the Reynolds number for the boundary layer becomes equal to or greater than critical Reynolds number, and the fluid particles become distorted, right? So the flow is said to be irrotational outside the boundary layer because there is no velocity gradient, and rotational within the boundary layer, which I have just explained on the whiteboard as well as on this slide. So now the transition from laminar to turbulent flow occurs at a critical value, right? So it is in perfectly smooth plate it is 5 lakh, but usually because the plates are of some finite roughness, so that's why the flow transition for a normal plate that would occur between 2 lakh to 3 lakh depending upon the roughness and the amount of turbulence in the upstream flow. So now we need to see that how far we need to, what is the thickness of this viscous region or the boundary layer region. So for that, as we already discussed in chapter number 8, we define a parameter which is called boundary layer thickness, and we kind of represent that parameter with a symbol which is delta. So that here you can see that delta element, delta thickness. So that is the thickness of the that is the distance away from the solid surface where the velocity of the flow becomes 99% of the free stream value. So it means that if the free stream value was 10 meter per second, so we kind of measure that distance away from the surface where the velocity becomes 9.9 meter per second. So v is equal to 0, here the v is equal to velocity is 0 at solid surface and it increases to free stream value, and the distance it takes to have that 99% of the free stream value, that is the boundary layer thickness, which is also shown in the figure. So boundary layer thickness is defined as the distance from the plate surface at which the fluid velocity is within some arbitrary value of the upstream value, and that arbitrary value people have defined as 99%. So you can always argue that why not 90% or 95% or 99.99%, because 99% is just a vague value. So make it a little bit more kind of robust. We kind of define some other parameters which are we call it displacement thickness. So what is displacement thickness? Or there is another parameter we will define after displacement thickness. So let me explain that what is displacement thickness. So why we need to define displacement thickness once we have got boundary layer thickness, because this 99%, that is very arbitrary value. So that doesn't reflect the true nature of the effect of boundary layer. So now let me kind of take that figure. So okay, let me copy it and then I would explain it here. Okay. So what is displacement thickness? That is okay. So consider consider we have got a viscous flow, which is the figure on the right hand side. So this is the viscous flow where the viscosity is quite comparable with the inertial flow. Then if we kind of see the velocity profile, we can see that the value is low at near the surface, and then it increases to free stream value at the boundary layer thickness, which is 99%. Right. So here there is a shaded region. This one, this red region, which is shaded region, maybe not like this. So this is the shaded region, which is, what is this? We can call it not loss. We can loss of mass flow rate. Yes, okay, loss of mass flow rate due to viscosity. Loss, or we can also say reduction in decrease in mass flow rate or the velocity. Because this stated, if the velocity would have been uniform in this region all along, then it would have a same value of free stream value. So it means that if we measure the mass flow rate for the viscous flow, and this is the inviscid flow. So can anyone tell me that if we are measuring the mass flow rate for both the situations, whose mass flow rate would be more, inviscid flow or the viscous flow? Anyone from the figure? Ji Hassan Mustafa, are you there?
Yes, sir. Can you repeat the question?
Okay. Question is that if we measure the mass flow rate for both cases, there in one case, at the same y location, right? On the right hand side we have got viscous flow, and on the left hand side we have inviscid flow. So in which case the mass flow rate would be more? in the inviscid flow case or the viscous flow case? Because here you can see the velocity is less on the right hand side. Can you see, Asli Mustafa?
Yes, sir.
So it means that if the velocity is less, then the mass flow rate would also be less. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So it means that viscous flow would have less mass flow rate in the boundary layer region as compared to the same region if that region was inviscid flow, which is outside the boundary layer. Now it means that there is reduction of mass flow rate. So we can say, we can write it here that mass flow rate of inviscid flow is greater than mass flow rate of viscous flow. As we have discussed that because the velocity is in the viscous region is less than the velocity in the inviscid region, so that's why mass flow rate would be less. So now we define a parameter which is called displacement thickness. Displacement thickness, and we denote it with the parameter delta star. So that is the thickness of the plate which needs to be increased, because if we increase this plate thickness, so let's suppose that this is also kind of a solid region here, so it means that there is no flow here. So now this is the distance from the flow is happening, right? And for the viscous flow, this is the region. Now, because we have increased the thickness of that plate, now it means that the mass flow rate of the inviscid flow would become equal to mass flow rate of viscous flow. Because now you can see that for the inviscid flow, the area for the flow has been less. So displacement thickness is the thickness which we need to add to the solid surface in order to make the mass flow rate equal to the actual viscous flow. So that is kind of an integral property. So integral property is always better than a single value, which was the case when we were talking about boundary layer thickness, which was defined by delta, boundary layer thickness. Okay, so that is the definition of displacement thickness. So the displacement thickness represents the amount of the thickness of the body which must be increased so that the fictitious or so-called uniform inviscid flow has the same mass flow rate as the actual viscous flow. It shouldn't be property there, but it should have the same mass flow rate. So I need to kind of erase this property from here, but it has got the same mass flow rate. Now, how can we mathematically see that the mass flow rate? If we want to calculate mass flow rate for this, we know the formula for the mass flow rate, that is rho AB. But rho AB, that would be applicable when we have got uniform value. And because in the viscous region we have got varying velocity profile, we need to integrate it from y is equal to 0 to y is equal to delta. So as I explained on the whiteboard, because of the velocity deficit within the boundary layer, velocity deficit is this shaded region. The flow rate across section BB is this section, that would be less than the flow rate across section A. A is this section for the inviscid flow, and that's why we need to increase the thickness of the flat plate so that this distance is less. Now we need to see that what is the value of delta star, which is displacement thickness, so that we can equate the mass flow rate for this from this point to this and from this to here. So it means that we are equating this shaded region, which is on the left hand side figure, which is this rectangle, with this, which is kind of triangular shape. So these are the velocity deficit for the boundary layer region, and this is the increase in the plate thickness. So if we want to calculate the mass flow rate which would pass through this displacement thickness, that is very easy. That would be rho AB. So area would be delta into B. What is delta into B is the thickness into the board, and delta is the height, and then U is the uniform value of velocity, and then rho, because we are considering incompressible flow, so rho would be here and rho would be here, that would be cancelled out. Delta star, which is displacement thickness, B, which is the width of this plate into the board, and U is the freezing value on the left hand side. Now, what is this shaded region? We need to integrate it from 0 to infinity or 0 to delta. For that case, so why we call it infinity? Because at y is equal to delta, this u would be equal to capital U, and then this quantity would be 0 after the boundary layer. So within the boundary layer, it would have some value, which is shown by this shaded region, u, which is the free stream value, and u, small u, which is function of y. So you can see that this differential is more near the wall, and it reduces to 0 at the edge of the boundary layer. So now u minus u into b dy. So from here, if we cancel out b and then try to calculate delta, so when we take u here, so capital U divided by capital U1 and u divided by capital U. So we have taken u on the right hand side, and we have cancelled out b. So we can easily calculate displacement thickness by this integration. On the same pattern, we can define the drag, that how much thickness of the plate should be increased to so that this plate would have the same drag as this inviscid flow. So that parameter we call it displacement. We call it momentum thickness. So the boundary layer momentum thickness is often used when determining the drag gains because of the velocity deficit in the boundary layer. The momentum flux cross section BB. In the displacement thickness, we talked about mass flow rate, and here we are talking about momentum flux. So this momentum flux deficit can be equated. So in that case, we need to, because we know that momentum is mass flow rate into m into v. So that is something we have done here, that we have multiplied the mass flow rate with the velocity here. So rho would be cancelled out, b, then again we can, and then that theta, that tells us that that is the thickness of the flat plate, which needs to be increased so that the actual profile has the same mass flow rate as this inviscid portion. So in this, if you kind of do the simplification, because on the left hand side it is very easy, rho b into u square. And so if you see from the last derivation, the only difference here is that we have multiplied it with u, right? So the same thing here, that u square, and on the right hand side we have multiplied it with the u velocity, which is the actual velocity, which is depending upon y rotation. So we can get the value of momentum, boundary layer momentum thickness. So these are integral properties, and they define the boundary layer in a more robust way. So usually we define the boundary layer in terms of momentum thickness or displacement thickness rather than boundary layer thickness. The reason for that is because 0.99, that is very kind of arbitrary random selection. So rather we kind of equate the mass flow rate and momentum due to the effect of boundary layer. Right. So it means that if we see here in this figure as well, that within the boundary layer, the velocity gradient in the y direction, they are more as compared to the velocity gradient in the x direction. Right? You can easily see that the velocity will decrease, but the reduction in velocity along the flow inside the boundary layer will be less as compared to the wall normal gradient, which is in the y direction. So the first thing we can say that within the boundary layer, we can say that within the boundary layer, we can say that streamline gradients are less than wall normal gradient, or we can mathematically write it partial upon partial y is greater than partial upon partial x within when y is less than equal to delta, which is the boundary layer thickness, right? So this is the condition. And then second thing we can see from this figure, second thing we can see from this figure that that the velocity would be less as compared to x velocity, because the predominant direction of the flow is in the x direction. So we can kind of write that within the boundary layer, we can say that v velocity, u velocity is far greater than v velocity. V velocity is in the y direction, u velocity is in the x direction. Right? So these are the two conditions which we kind of we can apply these conditions to the Navier-Stokes equation to simplify the equation in the boundary layer. So let me show you first of all the Navier-Stokes equation which we derived in chapter number 6. So if you remember from chapter number 6, these were the two momentum equations which we derived for the two-dimensional laminar flow. So now we can, and the continuity equation, we know partial u by partial x plus partial v by partial y is equal to 0. Now the boundary layer approximation or assumptions are that the flow along the boundary layer is the value of velocity is far greater than the value of velocity in the perpendicular to the flow direction. And second thing is that the wall normal velocity gradients within the boundary layer, they are far greater than the gradient in the x direction. So if we kind of simplify, if we put these two assumptions here, then it is quite easy to see that yes. Any question? Adi, any question?
नहीं सर, वो गलती से ऑन हो गया था.
No, that's fine. Okay. No problem. Okay, so we were talking about boundary layer assumption. So if we first of all, if we put the kind of see that if we put these two assumptions in the v momentum equation, which is the second equation here. So because partial v velocity is very less, and then the gradient along the x is very small, so it means that this term would be equal, partial v by partial x would be equal to 0. So first term would be 0. Then v velocity itself is very small, so we can also kind of neglect the second term or make it equal to 0. Then partial v by partial x. If partial v by partial x is there is 0, then if we take the second, if the gradient of 0, then that would be equal to 0 as well. So this term is also 0. And then partial, because v velocity itself, it is quite negligible as compared to u value. So this thing is also 0. So it means that we are left with only one term, which is partial p by partial y, that is equal to 0. So it means that within the boundary layer there is negligible gradient in y direction. So that's why v velocity is small. So it means that we have got only two equations, partial u by partial x plus partial v by partial y is equal to 0. And then the second equation, that is this u momentum equation, u into partial u by partial x. Now partial by partial x is very small, but u is quite big. So we cannot neglect this term, right? So that's why we have retained this term. And then v velocity, that is approximately equal to 0. So we have taken it equal to 0. And then if we have got, we have mentioned that we have got 0 pressure gradient within the boundary layer, partial v by partial x. Then the second, the last two terms, because partial u by partial x, that is very small. So if we take the gradient of a very small quantity, it would be even smaller. So we can neglect the first term. So we are left with this equation. We need to solve these two equations, which need to be solved. So you can see that they are still partial differential equations. So there was a scientist named Glaucius, which proposed the solution of these two equations in 1907. So in 1907, he proposed a similarity solution to this equation. So similarity solution is that he has kind of combined the streamline velocity and ball normal velocity by using this similarity variable. So we are not going into detail into that, because that is beyond the scope of this. We usually discuss these solutions in postgraduate courses. So I would just keep it as simple as possible for you guys, because it would involve the solution of a third dimensional third order ODE. So if we kind of put this parameter eta in these two equations, we can kind of come up with some third order ODE, and it can be solved by using some numerical techniques like Runge-Kutta method. So if we do that, which Glaucius done in 1907 on paper, we can do it on computer by using the computer programming very easily, like one page of code. But he did it in his PhD thesis in 1907, and he came up with the solution of the boundary layer, and he kind of derived boundary layer thickness as a function of x, as a function of Reynolds number, and then boundary layer thickness, then displacement thickness, and then momentum thickness as Reynolds number. So you can easily see that here that delta is a function of x. So x is going to appear here. So it means that if we increase the distance from the leading edge, so x is the distance from the leading edge. So if we increase the length, delta would increase as a function of square root, because there is also x in the denominator. So here there is x power 1. So that would become square root of x on the numerator side. So that is the same case for the delta, star, and theta. And similarly, the wall shear stress can also be found. So tau w, which is mu into du dy, he calculated it by using this relation. So you don't need to memorize these formulas. If I give any numerical problem, maybe I would give you these relations, so you can do the calculation. Because the reason for that is we haven't done the derivation, so you don't need to kind of cram it. Maybe I would give these formulas. in paper, if I wanted you to calculate these parameters, so because this is an important aspect of external flow, so that was necessary to show these relations to you. So how they are being derived, you need to know that once we apply the boundary layer approximation to the Navier-Stokes equation, we come up with these simplified partial differential equations, which can be solved by using the similarity solution proposed by Blossius uh, in the beginning of 20th century. So that similarity solution involved a variable which is eta, y into which is defined by y into square root of u upon vx. So if we apply the this similarity variable to these equations, this equation becomes third order ordinary differential equation, which can be solved, and he solved it in 1907 and came up with the solution for the boundary layer thickness, displacement thickness, and momentum thickness. Now we quickly do one numerical to see that how we can calculate these values. So now we have got water flow past a triangular flat plate oriented parallel to the free stream as shown in the figure. So we have got a triangular shape. So here uh, integrate the wall shear stress to integrate the wall shear stress over the plate to determine the friction drag on one side of the flat plate. Assume laminar boundary layer. So let me kind of take it, copy this figure. So here can paste it. So if we paste it here and then, okay. So first of all, if we kind of see the relation here, because this is a triangular shape, so if we kind of draw a symmetry line here in the okay. Okay. So now if we draw a symmetry line here at the middle, so distance here that is 0.5, right? So would if we want to see the slope of this, that can be defined y is equal to 0.5 minus x. So we can because this is a line, so we know that y is equal to mx plus c. So if we want to, we can calculate the slope, and that would be -1 in this case. So y, if we want to see that y, which is a function of x, that would be equal to 0.5 minus x. So now we need to calculate drag force on this plate, right? So for the calculation of drag force, we need to calculate tau. We need tau omega into this area, which is the area of this plate, right? So now, how can we calculate tau omega for this flat plate? Because this is a boundary layer flow, so we are going to use this relation, which I am going to copy here. And we are talking about laminar boundary layer, not turbulent boundary layer. That is because Blossius did the solution for two-dimensional laminar steady flow. So we are talking about that flow. So here we can say that this is the relation. So now Okay. So we need to integrate it because area is different at this point and it is varying along y. So that's why we need to do the integration bit. So tau omega value is this. So we can just put it here. So 0.332 u raised to power 3 by 2, and then we have got rho u square root under root, and then we have got here uh, 1 by x, and then we have got dA. Now, what is a dA? dA is basically, we can say that is dx dy, right? Because dx and dy. Now, what would be the limits here? So, for the limits, we need to see that if we have got y is equal to 0, then x would be 0, and then when we have got y is equal to 0.5, then x would be, if we use the trigonometry very simple, then we can see that x would be here, it would be 0.5, right? So x limit is that, and y limit is from 0 to 0 to 0.5 minus x, right? So let me kind of explain it here. So this is the same way, and then we are going to write it like this: 1 upon x into dx dy, right? And limits, that is x is equal to 0 and x is equal to 0.5 based on the slope, and then for the y we say that y is equal to 0, and we have got y is equal to 0.5 minus x. That is the limit for y. And now what can we do? That we need to first of all integrate in y. So because 1 upon x and dx, they are not function of y, so we can see that. So that is the same thing I am writing here. So here it would be x is equal to 0, x is equal to 0.5, and then here we would have 1 upon x dx, which is written like this, and here we have y from y is equal to 0 and y is equal to 0.5 minus x, right? So y is equal to 0.5 minus x. Why we haven't put in point this 1 meter, because that is changing. So that's why we have put it as a function of x. Because that y location, this is a function of x. So we need to put it as the limit as a function of x. So now our equation becomes, when we put the limits, then we have got x is equal to 0 and x is equal to 0.5 here, and then here we would have divided by x into dx, right? So if we integrate it, 0.5 upon x minus x upon square root of x, it would have two terms. We all know that. So that let me write it here then. 0.332 into 3 by 2 rho u, and then we would have, okay, one thing which need to be mentioned here, that because now here we have put 0.5 minus x, which is basically the half of the plate, so we would kind of multiply it with 2 because of the line of symmetry here. If I show you, this is the line of symmetry. So this integration we are doing, that is up till only half, so that's why we need to multiply it with 2 here. when we put the limit, right, from dA to dx dy. So because we are doing the integration up till the center line, so that's why due to symmetry we have put it equal to multiplied it with 2. So that 2 would come in, and that 2 would come here, and then if we put the limits, then it would be 0.5. Okay, maybe your class time is also over, so I would just write the things here quickly. Minus 2 by 3 x 3 by 2, and then put these two limits equal from 0 to 0.5, and then the value of shear stress or drag force, which comes out to be, if we put the values, rho value we know for the air, that is for the water, that is 999, and then u value, that is mu value. This is mu value, that is 1.12 into 10 to the power minus 3. If we put these values, then drag coefficient becomes equal to 0.0296 Newton. After doing the rho and mu value for the water would be given to you in the actual exam, if that is the case. Okay, so there are going to be some practice problem, and these assignment problems I would give you on MS Teams. So maybe then we can see it there on MS Teams. So maybe you would be given 4 problems. So you have to do it in kind of 1 week time. So that would include our assignments, because we need to take 4 assignments. Okay, one important announcement, that your first quiz from this chapter, which would be based upon theoretical knowledge, so that would be taken in chapter in your 2 hours class at 15 past 4. So it would be of 15 minutes on LMS. So the total MCQs would be 10, which would be random for everyone, and then you would have 10 minutes to do it. So the total window you can attempt that quiz, that is 15 minutes. You can log in between that, and then you would have 10 minutes to do that quiz. So I am not going to give any numerical in that quiz, because we haven't done much at the moment. So I would give you the assignment in the next week for that, and then we will see that about the quiz number 2, because we have to take 2 quizzes. So I understand that I am already over the time limit for the class. So if there is any question, you can ask. Otherwise, we can just finish the lecture.
Sir,